Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be pouring the stem wall over the rebar that I installed in the last video. And as I explained, the reason that we're having to pour this stem wall is to raise the elevation of the floor in the house so that we have proper outflow for our plumbing, for the wastewater to get out of the house into the septic tank. The crew you're going to be watching is pretty dang impressive. I put a timestamp for when they started the day and for when they finished. This company is Murphy's Basement Company out of Ravenden, Arkansas, and they are outstanding. You'll see once they hit the ground, it is nothing but work until they're done for the day. So I think you're going to like today's video. Hopefully you'll learn something as we go along. I'm going to try to explain what the forms are, what they're doing, and how things work as best as I can. The banging that you hear going on here while they're unloading these forms is them knocking the concrete left over from the last time they used them on a pour off of the joining surfaces where the forms hook together, so make sure that they've got a good joint between the forms when they put the form ties in and tie everything together, so you don't have big seams and a lot of concrete leakage while they're doing the pouring. Now this is Mr. Murphy. He is bending up the corners for the rebar. When he puts the horizontals in, you need about a 2-foot overlap around the corner to make sure you get a good tie between the sides of where a corner meets. And the machine he's using is an electric bender. That's a pretty neat tool. It's a really efficient way to do it instead of using a hand bender on a board. Now here you see Mr. Murphy using a rebar tying tool that he said he'd be hard pressed to choose between this tool and some really important member of his family if he had to make a choice.
Hey, well, why don't you guys start getting us some 16-inch fillers? You're the same, Jeff. 10 foot 4.5. Did you hear? You guys start getting us some 16-inch fillers?
Now in this shot, you're going to see them installing what's called whalers, and the whalers go in brackets that are on the forms, and they tie all of these forms together to make them more rigid.
I think he's gonna put one more
And
whaler on there, Fuzz.
as Mr. Murphy comes down through here, he's going to be stringing a line down the face of that form and looking down it and telling them where to move the form to start getting things lined up, square and plumb along here. After they do this part, they're going to start installing turnbuckles, and the turnbuckles are used to move the top of the form in and out on a vertical plane so that you can plumb that form up. And when you start pouring concrete in there, it also provides bracing that keeps the form from moving. If you think back to when we did the video on the footings and the forms started floating on the concrete and coming up and shifting sideways, it's because there was not any bracing on the vertical members of the form to keep it in place and keep them from moving out of line.
We'll shove it a little more when we get that drive some turn.
No, don't mess with it. Don't hit the handle. Probably go ahead and put your turnbuckle.
Yeah.
You starting out there?
Go ahead and put those two. Going back on. Hey, Buzz, fill the second one, just shove it over before y'all got it. Turn your deal over. Turn your deal over. All right, shove on it now. Hold it. Shove it over. All right, drive with that.
Now this is their pump truck that they're going to use to fill these forms arriving, and you're going to see them setting it up and getting it ready to go. And what they're doing is extending the outriggers on this pump truck, which allows them to run the boom out and not tip the truck over, basically. And they're going to put outrigger pads underneath the downriggers on these things to spread the load across a larger surface area of the ground. and it just keeps it from basically punching a hole in the ground and tipping over toward one outrigger. I have been operating a crane in the past and had that happen, and it is not fun. First shot of concrete you're going to see coming out of the pump truck is one that we can't use in the forms because they've put a pump primer through there, and what it does, it keeps the piping from basically sucking the moisture out of the concrete and causing a plug, and which that can be very, very expensive, because if you don't get it cleared out immediately, you can end up having to replace about $20,000 worth of pipe up the boom of this thing. But the primer shot they're going to dump in the middle, and then we're going to move out and start putting concrete in these forms. As they're coming down through here working this concrete into the form, you can see the form ties running across the width of the form, and those are used to set the thickness of the wall that you're pouring inside of that form. These happen to be 12 inches. On the garage there are some 16-inch ones because we're making a brick ledge where the rock that's going to go on the outside of the house will sit. Since we're putting the porches around all the rest of the house, you know, we needed something on the garage where there are no porches for the rock to sit. But these things, to use a pin and wedge system through a hole in either end of these form ties that locks that form in place, and then when you pull the form apart and you've got the ends of those form ties sticking out, they're actually called snap ties as well. You just hit them with a hammer and they break right off. this is the next day, and they're back stripping these forms off so they can move on to the next job. And once again, I was absolutely amazed with their efficiency and the teamwork of this crew. The main part of the crew was overdoing another pour on a house, and there was, I'm pretty sure it was just 4 guys that came over and stripped these forms off, loaded up the trucks, and got everything ready to move on to another job. It was actually kind of like watching people put up a circus and take it down. It was just amazing. All right, folks, I want to take a minute and tell you thank you for watching our videos and sharing them and hitting the thumbs up. It seems like that more people are getting exposure to these videos because the algorithm is showing them to more people, and that's only because of you folks that are watching our videos and hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. And I really appreciate it. I am amazed when I click on the stats for some of these videos and see just how well they're doing. And I hope you're finding the information useful. You know, even if you're not building your own house, people get involved in projects where they do some of this stuff, and hopefully it's helpful for you. But I just want to tell you thanks for watching and supporting our channel.
You might have put your video on that side. I was just guessing.
Since we had this stem wall poured, the temperatures have been over 100 degrees during the day. Thankfully, we're getting down into the mid to low 70s at night. But what we're doing is keeping this concrete wet, kind of a water cure. Reason we're doing this is to try to keep the temperature down. With concrete cures, it's a chemical reaction and it builds heat. And we didn't want the heat to get so excessive that this thing started expanding and cracking. I got a buddy that has built industrial concrete structures for the better part of 40 years. And he said that what they normally do is cover the whole thing in burlap and they keep it wet for about 7 days. Well, I'm not going to do 7 days. I'm probably going to end up with about 3 days worth of water on this thing. But we've already reached a point now where it's not making its own heat. And so far, other than very, very shallow surface cracks on the top of the wall, we've only got one pretty good crack in this thing that runs top to bottom on the wall. So this seems to be helping. The crack that I'm talking about developed before the forms were stripped, and I believe that it is a result of a crack that corresponds to it a little ways away in the footing. So far, this keeping this wet is working pretty well. But just something to think about if you're going to be pouring concrete yourself, especially flat concrete. When we pour the slab, we will probably have sprinklers running on it for about 3 days to try to mitigate the cracking in it. Now, the other issue though is if it's cold out, you want to keep blankets on it. You know, they make concrete blankets to keep the heat inside so that you don't end up with your concrete freezing on the surface. Well, folks, I think this is going to wrap up the footing and stem wall phase of this project, and we're going to start backfilling everything. Thank you for watching, and y'all have a good day.